Good afternoon and welcome back to Locked On NBA. On today's show, the Cavaliers hope to get over the hump and make it back to the NBA Finals, and they may be counting on one of their star players to take a leap to do so. Meanwhile, are we overlooking what a healthy Zion Williamson could mean to the Pelicans?
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to Locked On NBA, however you might be tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. I'm Wes Goldberg, and today we're talking about what a healthy Zion Williamson means for the Pelicans' playoff chances, and we'll take a look at some standout players from last night's preseason games, and we're doing it with the help of Locked On's local experts. I have two of the best with me, as always, from the Locked On Nuggets podcast, senior NBA writer for the Action Network, Matt Moore. Matt?
Matas Buzelis. That's all I got to say.
Locked On Bulls podcast, he's a Bears and Bulls creator for Bleacher Report. Haize, is it time for the party horns?
Yeah, I think so. Listen, as a lifelong Bulls fan, sometimes the best excitement that we have is right now. We'll see if it's still there in December.
We will talk about Matas Buzelis. Matas? Matas? Haize? Matas? Okay. Matas Buzelis later on in the show, but we're continuing our team preview series with the Cavaliers. The Cavs won 64 games last season, but failed to make it out of the second round. Again, we asked Danny Cunningham from Locked On Cavaliers what the biggest question facing the team is this season.
Hey guys, Danny Cunningham from Locked On Cavs here, and the biggest question about the Cleveland Cavaliers heading into this season is, can they do it in the playoffs, right? We saw last year this team can be a regular season wins machine. They won 64 games. They looked like the best team in the Eastern Conference from start to finish. There was never a day in which they didn't have the best winning percentage in the Eastern Conference last year. I don't know if that is going to repeat itself, but I do think that this team should be a little bit better set up for postseason success. I think that defensively, they should be better. I think offensively, they should be a little bit better, despite having the second most efficient offense in NBA history last year. But ultimately, this team needs Evan Mobley to take a step forward. And if he does, I do think that could lead to some more postseason success, which we've not yet seen from this group.
So the Cavs lost in the second round in each of the last two seasons. They've won just one game in each of those second round series. Matt, what has to change for the Cavs to make it work in the playoffs?
A better balanced offense-defense. So I think it's important not to overreact to that series last year because, Garland gets hurt, and then game two is, okay, Pacers come in, steal game one, Pacers, black magic, whatever. Then in game two, it's not just Garland, but it's Mobley and DeAndre Hunter. And the Cavs were still in position to even that series and get off the ledge. But then Tyrese Haliburton, again, Pacers black magic, steals that one. And the whole series shifts. But to me, that series was actually lost when Kenny Atkinson decided that in game one versus this Pacers team that he was going to go for offense. He put Sam Merrill in for Garland. And I was like, what are you doing? What? Why? As soon as I saw that, I was concerned. You have to rebalance because the team was elite defensively, and then they were really pretty mediocre to bad offensively. And then Atkinson joins, and they became the best offense in the league, the most fun offense in the league last season, the most explosive offense in the league. And their defense was not very good. And then it was not bad. And for a while, it's pretty good. And it never really got to great. They got to be a balanced team this season. You cannot go into these games, especially when you have Evan Mobley. You can't be going into these games being well, we're just going to put up 140 and there's nothing you can do to stop us. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. So they've got to be, I think, more ready for physicality. They've got to be more ready for defensive versatility. They've got to be more ready for those. They've got to lean into the athletes that they have instead of the shooters that they have.
I mean, those are all good points. The Cavs, it last season it came so much down to health, and I love that you pointed out and started this off by saying, it's not, they can't be judged by that because of everything that went on. I want to see what this Cavs team looks like fully healthy because I think they have really good balance offensively and defensively. I think we've seen them strike that. I think that what we saw sometimes during the regular season is them just doing what they needed to do to make it through the East and things like that. But I think that this team is capable of such great balance offensively and defensively. You look at Evan Mobley. This is another player that I think is ready to make a step. And this is the one that I'm looking at. If the Cavs really want to be a contender this year, I think that you need to see quite a step for I can't call it a leap because he's already been really good, but a nice step for Evan Mobley.
I think if you look at like the curve, right, it's really interesting because if you look at it, they went from being a terrible team to being like, hey, this team's not bad. And then it was like, but they don't know how to win. They got really hurt in that play-in tournament that first year. They add Donovan Mitchell. And then it was like, okay, we know a little bit how to win, but we don't have enough firepower. Like we don't know how to like win at an elite level. And then they added that last season. But their problem last season is you also have to learn how to not get too complacent and not buy into your own hype. Like Danny, I love Danny. Danny is terrific. You know something bad's coming when I hype somebody up like this. But Danny was like, look at what they did to the Heat. This team is what could stop this team. And I was just like, this is not good. I don't know how to put this. I do believe this though, Haize. And I want your thoughts on it. I think the Cavs peaked too early and they won that first round series by too comfortably. I think you have to have a certain edge that you're playing with. And whenever you get comfortable and you have an opportunity to believe too much in yourself, you have to have an appropriate fear, even as a contender. Otherwise, I think you get caught.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from that, and I'm not saying that maybe they didn't play a little bit. I still look at it as mainly the injuries, but that is a really good point. Like, I mean, we've seen it happen before. Teams that have too much of an easy path in the playoffs, they sometimes get caught up the moment they meet a team that just refuses to go away. Maybe that's some of what got in the Cavs' way last season as well. But we'll see because I really do think if the Cavs have another disappointment where they don't make it out the second round this year, some major trades are coming for that team in the offseason.
I like the idea that Matt brings up there of sort of this Miami Heat bait and switch because you hear people talk about the Heat all the time. Hey, if you go through, they're going to make you work. They're going to make you work, blah, blah, blah. One of the best coaching. That team did not make anybody. They did not make the Cavaliers work. And maybe Cleveland walks away. It's like, hey, that was us working. And we won by a total of 70 points across the series, whatever it was. Like maybe we are this good. And then they weren't. So they got bait and switched a little bit. I want to go back to Haize's point though about Evan Mobley potentially taking a leap because we asked Danny what a leap for Evan Mobley could look like.
Hey guys, Danny Cunningham from Locked On Cavs here, and this year, Evan Mobley becomes a top 5 player in the NBA if he takes multiple steps forward on the offensive end of the floor. I'm talking the handle needs to be tighter. I think he needs to be a more efficient scorer. I think he needs to take more shot attempts, and I think he needs to become a better playmaker. I think all of those things are possible. Now, the likelihood that he becomes a top 5 player in basketball, I think is pretty steep. I wouldn't bet on that happening this year. I think it can happen in time. I think he has all the tools to get to that type of place as a player, but I don't think he gets there this year. Now, if he does get there this year, the Cavs are going to win the title. If the Cavs have a top 5 version of Evan Mobley and Donovan Mitchell, who is, as we in our Locked On Top 100 have as the number 9 overall player, they have both of those guys as top 10 players in basketball this year, the Cavs will win a title. I just don't know that Evan Mobley is quite going to be able to get to that stature this season.
Haize, I want to ask this as straightforward as possible. Do the Cavaliers need Evan Mobley to be their best player to win the championship?
I'll say no, not necessarily. Does it make it a lot more likely? Yes. But I think you can probably win a title with the defense that they have. And if Donovan Mitchell goes nuclear for a series, which we know he's capable of doing, they could still win a title that way. It makes it a whole lot easier if Evan Mobley's your best player because then at that point, you already know what Donovan Mitchell is. Darius Garland is a great offensive player as well when he's in rhythm. So if that were to happen, if he gets to that place of playing like a top 5 player, then yeah, I'd bet on them to win a title. But I think they still have a chance to win one without that happening.
You've come a long way in a year, man. I remember a year ago you being like, the Cavs are going nowhere with Donovan Mitchell as their number 1. Like, I remember that take from you a year ago. He really showed you something last year, which is interesting because he didn't have necessarily the best statistical season that he could have had. My thing is actually, because I was arguing with somebody about this, because I'm doing MVP, like betting stuff over at Action. And, you know, Donovan Mitchell's 100-1, which is categorically insane for the guy that is the best player on the best team in the Eastern Conference by what I think is a pretty good margin. But my colleague was like, but he's not even the best player. Evan Mobley's the best player. I was like, no. Evan Mobley's the most important player, but there's a difference there. And that to me is kind of the difference is you need Evan Mobley to be the guy that does all of these things that fill in all of these gaps. Hey, you need a defensive stop. You've got Evan Mobley. Need a big block. Need a big rebound. Clutch bucket. Good pass. All of these types of things. Evan Mobley can be that. But like Donovan Mitchell, people do not realize how good this guy is. He had such a bad start to the year, mostly because he was deferring. He was like, Darius is cooking, so I'm going to get out of the way. And then when Darius slowed down, Donovan's like, perhaps I can be of assistance, and stepped in and was awesome the rest of the year. People do not understand how good Donovan Mitchell is. And with Garland out to start this season, I think people are going to understand just how great Donovan Mitchell is, especially with the weapons they have around him this year.
Yes, we shall see. I mean, the thing my concern with Donovan Mitchell still is sometimes the inconsistencies, but there was a lot less of that last season. And you did see Donovan Mitchell, to your point, learn to pick his spots better and to complement other players better. And that always is when it makes a team most dangerous. So we'll see.
We're going to move on to the Pelicans, who have the talent, but can they stay healthy? We asked the host of Locked On Pelicans what he's seen in this preseason that could give him a little bit more confidence. We'll talk about that after this. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization on your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever having to touch a spreadsheet. Maybe you aren't saving as much as you thought. Monarch helps you identify savings opportunities, smart investments, and discover forgotten 401ks from your past jobs. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com. Just use the code LOCKEDONNBA. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen. The best way to support the show is to subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. Let's go to New Orleans, where the biggest concern facing the Pelicans is a matter of keeping their best players on the floor.
What is the Pelicans' biggest question this season? It's health, like it is every year. I'm Jake Madison, host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast. It's health. Is Zion Williamson going to play? Is Jordan Poole going to play? Is Trey Murphy, Herb Jones going to play? If they do, well, there's enough talent here that I'm not going to say they're going to be a title contender or anything, but they're certainly going to be in the mix for a playoff spot. Beyond the health, though, if you want to kind of look at all of those pieces, the biggest question is, how exactly do they all fit? Jordan Poole, Zion Williamson could be really good together, but Jordan Poole needs the ball in his hands. So does Zion Williamson. How do you make all of these really talented pieces fit and become greater than the sum of their parts? That's going to be the big challenge for head coach Willie Green. If they do that, this team will be competitive in the West. If not, you might be looking at another very disappointing season in New Orleans yet again. And that's not great because they don't have next year's first round pick. For more on the Pelicans, check out the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's just assume full health for a second, which I understand is a very big assumption for the Pelicans. But for the sake of this conversation, let's assume full health. How good is a healthy Pelicans team? And where could they finish in the West, kind of given this best case scenario, Matt?
So I think people forget that 2 years ago, they were actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were pretty good. And like they ran into OKC and Zion was hurt. And that's fine, right? One of the things that I have a little bit of concern about is just I have some concerns about Willie Green as coach. I feel like he's a player's coach that like a lot of guys like to play for, but I'm not sure that he's able to get the right kind of feeling from them. And when you look at last season, look, Zion played 857 minutes. He was off court for 3,000. But in the 857 minutes he played, they were minus 1.8. It's not good enough.
The problem, the Pelicans are always going to be a bunch of potential. A fully healthy Pelicans team, I mean, they weren't even fully healthy that year. They still had tons of injuries. They won 46 games. The question now is do you feel like this team is a better team without Brandon Ingram? CJ McCollum's gone. Can Jordan Poole, step up? What can he provide? Is there better balance overall on this team? I think that's the question that you have to ask there. DeJounte, he's had his own injury concerns as well over his career, right? So if you're saying that this team is, let's just say relative health, let's say everybody plays between 65 and 70 games this season. I think you can see this Pelicans team winning 45, 48 games. Like I can see them doing that. Zion is that dominating when he's fully healthy. And even with him slimming down, he still looks like he could be that player. The question now is that with so many changes on this team based off what they had even the last time that they won over 40 games, that's the bigger question here now. Trey Murphy III has stepped up a lot. I love him. Like having him and Herb Jones out on that wing. Jordan Poole is a question there that I mentioned. I think even when you look at now the center rotation as well, having Eve Missy and Kevon Looney, it's solid there. Sadiq Bey is a solid role player. So this is a team that I can see being very a fun team to watch in the Western Conference. I don't know if I'd still pick them to win a first-round playoff series or anything like that, but I do think this is a team that can make the playoffs if everybody's fully healthy. I just think it's foolish to bet on them being fully healthy with DeJounte and Zion on the team.
They've shown like a real level of defensive aptitude that they can get to. Like that's probably the best thing about Green is like he's been able to put together good defensive seasons with so many injuries and in and out stuff. They have shooting, right? Jordan Poole, Trey, Herb's actually getting to where he's pretty consistent. Jordan Hawkins, Sadiq Bey, which was a good pickup. They've got shooting. They've got some guards. They've got bigs now with Eve Missy and then whatever Derek Queen is able to do. I really like the Kevon Looney pickup. Like the pieces are there for it to be. There's nothing I can like look at their roster and be like, man, they really need this outside of maybe point guard play with DeJounte Murray out for the start of the season.
He is out till New Year's. Yeah. So
yeah.
They already aren't starting off fully healthy. So.
Right. But it's also like, Zion can bring the ball up. Trey can bring the ball up. Like they have guys that they can fill in there. It's hard to identify like if they're healthy, what's going to kill them? And that I think is an interesting thing that we don't really think about is like what's going to hurt them if they are healthy, which who knows? But if they are healthy, what's the weakness that you really find on this team? Not the strengths are a question mark too. What are they going to be elite at? But I also don't know what they're going to be really vulnerable at either.
The thing that they can be elite at is getting to the basket and scoring at the rim when Zion is healthy. And if we go back to what we were talking about, skinny Zion Williamson, the way that he looks at media day and these preseason, Zion played just 30 games last season. He was 47th in the Locked On Top 100. We asked Jake what Zion will be ranked next year.
Zion Williamson was 47th in the Locked On Top 100. He's going to be top 20 next season. I'm Jake Madison, host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast. Y'all see him at Media Day? Did you see how good he looked? For the first time in his career, he did all the right work in the offseason and showed up in shape. Now, you might be saying it's just Media Day. It's all words. You need actions. That's actually an action. In the now 7 years that I've been covering Zion Williamson, I've never been able to say he did all the right things in the offseason, showed up in shape without lying to y'all, which I maybe have done. When you combine that with how he finished last season, 24.6 points per game, 5.3 assists, 7.2 rebounds in under 30 minutes of action, you ramp him up more, he plays like that, engaged on defense. That is an elite, near all NBA type of player. This is the season that Zion Williamson hopes he kind of shuts all of the doubters down. We'll be covering it over at the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Top 20 next year, maybe with a big season, Haize, but can we ever get to a point where we're not doing this? Hey, he's top 20, now he's top 50, he's fallen out of the top 50 with Zion. It just feels like we're Jonah Hilling with him all the time. And are we ever going to get to a point where he's just consistently a top 20 guy?
I wouldn't bet on it. I have to see it more consistently before I'd be willing to say that. Like when Zion's on, he's great, and that's amazing. But I don't think we've seen enough of him being healthy and on the court to be able to say he can ever consistently be a top 20 guy.
Are we factoring the health in here, or are we not, Wes?
I don't know. We got to ask the rest of Locked On what we're doing with health when it comes to our Locked On Top 100.
Look, I'll just tell you this. Here's his projection next year from Basketball Reference based off of his previous seasons. And they're pretty conservative with a lot of these. These are his projections. 28 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists per 36 minutes. He's a monster.
Yeah.
Like he is a NBA certified monster. The only way to stop him is to foul him. Now, I don't know what that means for him with this lighter build, right? Like I have concerns about that, which is he was a truck and now he's like a smaller truck. He's like a Dodge Dakota versus an F-150 with bad brakes and bad wheels. So I will just say, like, he's a top 10 guy when he's healthy. He just is.
Mm-hmm.
Impact, production, all of it. Like, that's who he is. So it is not crazy. We do not know what the future is going to look like from this injury perspective, especially just because, and this is what the most frustrating thing about this is, you can have questions about Zion's conditioning and his injuries, etc. But like our big question is the Pelicans injury staff and the resources they put into that. And the words out of DeJounte Murray this summer were so bad about his relationship with the team and how no one checked on him. They do not have the investment from ownership to put them in the right position. And Zion may be a guy who cannot succeed unless you have an organization that can put him in the right position.
When we're talking about Zion, it kind of feels like we're never going to see 80 games of him probably on the court, at least not in New Orleans, to your point there, Matt. But like, let's just say it was 65 games playing at a top 10-ish level. Haize, that sounds like a top 20 type of player.
Yeah, it does. It does. Like I have no doubt that Zion can be more than a top 20 player if you're looking at like stats, if you're looking at an individual season. But I think we like availability still has to factor into that. It has to. And until he's more available on the court, there's always going to be that asterisk by his name that keeps him a conversation that can be had that keeps him out of that conversation of top 20. Hell, we should be talking about Zion at this point in his career at minimum top 15. That should be the minimum that we're talking about. And even then, it could be, easily said that he should be top 10. The question is just that he's not able to stay on the court enough. And his desire to keep his conditioning underway so he can stay on the court. Now, hopefully that's changed this season. And if it has, NBA, watch out, because if Zion ever does just stay healthy, like I said, 65 games, to me, that's close enough to a full season for anybody in the modern NBA with rest and all that. If you can play 65 games consistently year in and year out, that's all that a player like Zion needs to do.
Quite literally, that's the minimum, right? To start qualifying for these awards and stuff like that. We're going to move on. One Bulls player has his sights set at winning most improved player this season. We'll talk about who it is and why his preseason should inspire confidence after this.
Who's Alice?
Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you're not going to want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little bit something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. The Locked On Podcast Network has a show for every team. Check out Locked On Pelicans and Locked On Cavaliers for more on today's team previews. You also want to check out Haize on Locked On Bulls, because I know they talked about Matas Buzelis after last night's preseason game. He has 19 points and 8 rebounds in the Bulls win over the Cavaliers. We're going to talk about a little bit more preseason basketball stuff here and other standout performances. We're going to do it with Fact or Fluff, our favorite preseason segment here. Haize, we've heard Buzelis say that he wants to win Most Improved Player this season. Is a leap from Buzelis fact or fluff?
I think it's fact. I think you're going to see it. I think the role is going to be there for him. All that's going to be there for Matas Buzelis. He does want to win Most Improved Player of the Year. There have been 7 players in NBA history to win Most Improved Player in their second season. The last 2 to do were Monte Ellis and Gilbert Arenas. Neither one of those players averaged, I think, even over 18 points per game to do it. So there's a precedence that it can be done without having to have an exorbitant amount of points per game. But you do have to be a factor in your team. You do have to be one of the main aspects of your team winning. And I think the roles there, I think what we saw last night is they're using him more to do stuff off the dribble. They're using him as a point forward more. So I think Buzelis is going to have a good path to get there because of points, rebounds, block shots, and defense. I think that's going to be his key to get there.
I think the key with him is, if he's going to win the award, is going to be consistency. I think it's fact, because I think that his good games are going to be great. The problem is just going to be, it's more likely, especially with prospects like Matas Buzelis, that they have like awesome games, but can't put them back to back. And that's kind of the issue. And I think the idea with the Bulls is, well, that's why we have Kobe White and Josh Giddey, who we pay too much money to, like, and Patrick Williams for some reason. Like those combos, I think, are to make up for those lesser games. But that really is the thing, is the early part of your NBA career is about finding out what you're good at and what you're going to be and sharpening those things. And then the middle part of your career, that prime segment, is about finding that consistency to do it every single night. And I think that's going to be the challenge for Buzelis, is putting that together. But man, he looked so good last night. Go watch the highlights. The lefty hesitation finish was so great. He just looked awesome. And he's got the skill set, I think, that complements absolutely everybody. I thought it was going to take him longer to look this refined. Like, I liked the pick, and I thought I liked him as a prospect, but I was like, it's probably going to be 2-3 years before he looks like he can put it together. So for him to come into preseason and look this way, I think is really encouraging for Chicago, because they desperately need somebody to be best player on the team caliber.
Haize, you're the host of Locked On Bulls. What's the scouting report on Buzelis that we could share with like the national fans listening to this show? Because I don't know how many people were really tuning into Bulls games last year and watching Buzelis closely during his rookie year. Give us the elevator pitch on Buzelis and sort of when he was drafted, what the ceiling was and what people thought about him.
So for Buzelis, when he was drafted, one of the biggest knocks was shooting. He's just not a consistent shooter. Everything for him is usually at the rim or at the 3-point line. And I think when you look at like how he grew as a player last year, you saw the shooting come around. His 3-point shooting became a lot more consistent. And then even last night, a lot of his shots were at the rim. He's being a lot more aggressive, taking players off the dribble. Buzelis as a player is kind of the modern point forward type architecture. He can play the 3, he can play the 4. It depends on what your team's doing, but he is a jack of all trades. He can do a little bit of everything. The one thing that and he's going to refine as it goes on, because he's only in the second year and only 20 years old, is that he doesn't have a one thing he does great yet, but he does a lot of things. He affects the game in a lot of different ways, and he's really good. So he makes it difficult to kind of know what he's going to do game in and game out. But once he finds his one thing in the NBA, he has the all-around game that, it's safe to say he's going to be a really good player. How good, though, is how he continues to build his craft.
Let's go to Minnesota, where Terrence Shannon had 5 assists in the Timberwolves' overtime loss to the Pacers in their preseason game. Shannon also had 9 points and 3 steals in that game. Is Shannon's increased role in the offense fact or fluff, Matt?
I think it's fact. I think they need some more initiators. I think they need some more guys that can get downhill, because one of the problems that they've kind of had is when teams double team Ant, they just have a bunch of weapons to augment Ant off the dribble. And so then everything kind of bogs down. I think it's one of the reasons why they were comfortable moving on from Nickeil Alexander-Walker, because NAW is a better player than Shannon, but he's not an on-ball creator. And so moving to this kind of system, I think is going to be really good. I also really like the way that Donte DiVincenzo is playing. He's playing aggressive, and it looks like his 3-point shot is back after he struggled last season a lot. And so like Terrence Shannon giving them a little bit more on-ball creation, and Donte DiVincenzo giving them better off-ball shot creation, that could really help what has been a pretty mediocre offense. I'm intrigued. I'm worried about things being too stale in Minnesota because they didn't change anything up, but there's a very, very easy way for me to talk myself into this Wolves team being a top 3 seed and making the Western Conference Finals again, Haize.
Yeah, I mean, all they need is them to continue to grow. And I've said this, I think, on this show a couple weeks ago, like, I'm not going to pick them to be over the OKC Thunder to get past them. But as we've seen, injuries, right matchups, anything can happen. Like, they've been right there for the last couple of years. There's no reason to not think that they can eventually bubble over. But I do like Terrence Shannon Jr. could be really good for this team. I think in having him scoring off the bench, and he is an older, now second-year player, so you want to expect him to do something and grow, and they're, I think, looking for that. But they have a lot of possibilities on this roster. A guy like Juan Behringer is one of the best young players that I think like has a really high upside, but really raw, right? I don't know if that comes together in this season, but the Timberwolves are a team that I would not be surprised if just the right scenario pops up and they're able to make it out the West finally. And if they do, Ant in the finals is something I need to see.
Bones Highland has had some flashes for them coming off the bench in this preseason. Maybe they're starting to put something together. Rob Dillingham, obviously, they still have top 10 pick from last year. And Terrence Shannon in that preseason game, float into a pick and roll and hit Naz Reid on the roll for an easy basket. That had me intrigued to see if they can get a little bit more of that stuff that Matt was talking about that isn't so Anthony Edwards centric here. Last one, and we'll be quick with it. Craig Porter Jr. had 17 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. Loaded box score off the bench for the Cavs in their preseason game. With injuries to Max Strus and Darius Garland, there could be minutes available for Porter to start the season. Is Porter being ready for a rotation role? Porter, who was drafted last year, so going into his second season. Is him being ready for a rotation role for a team with legitimate championship aspirations like we talked about, fact or fluff, Haize?
Oof, man. He's 25 years old, even though he's in his second season. So I would want to say that it's more fact than fluff, but I haven't seen enough of a sample size to say it. So right now, I'll say that it's fluff, but it does have the chance of being fact.
Fact. He was good last year. He's good the year before that. He shot 44% from 3 last season. He needs to play more than Sam Merrill. Craig Porter Jr. is good.
If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Thanks to Matt and Haize for their expertise every day. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On NBA.